Before we begin this episode, you should know that Se7en contains some scenes that some might find disturbing, such as sexual assault, self-harm, suicide, sexual exploitation, excessive gore, mental health issues, and extreme violence. Audience discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to the 11th episode of Incantation, a horror movie review podcast where we discuss both classic and current horror movies as well as everything in between. We're four friends from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia with a shared love for everything horror. My name is Joe. With me today is Caleb.
Hello.
Lynn.
Hi.
And Josh. This week is our second psychological horror series, and for today, Caleb has chosen the movie Se7en. So, Caleb.
Right. So Se7en is a psychological crime thriller that came out in 1995, directed by David Fincher, written by Andrew Kevin Walker. The film follows two detectives, Detective Mills and Detective Somerset. They investigate a series of murders that are connected to the 7 deadly sins.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, tell us, did you like the movie?
I like the movie a lot. I like detective crime movies because it lets me follow the characters, the detective go around, and I also play along as like detectives to like figure out the what's it called? Just figure out
The mystery of it.
Yeah, the mystery and who's the one that is doing it and everything. And yeah, this movie, the strong point for me is, in my opinion, is the writing. I like the writing a lot, and I lost my plot.
Tell us what you like about the plot. What are the interesting things about the plot that you're reading about?
Interesting plot.
Yeah.
What?
Did you just black out? You want to come back?
Do over, I think.
Want to come back to you or?
Yeah, come back to me.
Okay. Maybe Lynn can go.
Sure. It's my first time watching Se7en. I've heard about it, but I've never actually went to look at it until this podcast came about. But no regrets, I really like the movie. I think it addresses the 7 deadly sins really well. We don't always hear of the 7 deadly sins because I don't know what's the reason, but we don't always hear about them. And this movie really, each scene and each crime has depicted each sin really well, and it's creepy as well, and it has funny humorous elements as well. Like the character of Brad Pitt in this movie is just hilarious. It's crazy lah. It's just so funny that I 15 minutes into the movie I thought this was a comedy, but nope. Yeah, because it was so funny. The things that he said.
Quite far from the
Yeah, but the things that he said, the character of Brad Pitt, I really like his character in this movie. And yeah, I think the plot was planned out really well. I liked it through, and even the ending was really good. So definitely recommending this movie to anyone who's keen to watch horror. Like if you are okay with a bit of gore, okay with a bit of surprises, and you're not too much of that jump scare person, then this is the right movie for you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, because this is your first time watching it, did you already know what was going to happen at the end?
No, I did not expect the ending. So I think it really worked for me, yeah.
That's excellent. I wish I could have, I could have that experience again.
For the first time again, right? Right. The only time that comedy is referenced is the Divine Comedy, which is about about
Which is
Dante
actually
going to hell.
Not very funny.
Right. So, Seven for me is actually one of my most influential movies. A bit of background: I used to design escape rooms, and one of the escape rooms is called Seven. So, I really love this movie. From the first time I saw it, I think this is my fifth viewing of it for this review. So, man, I would say I love it every time I watch it, and you could pick out more things. I mean, David Fincher, he's put in so much details in these movies. I love the dark mood of this movie. The setting of the film, the whole city is just I mean, I don't want to get too much into it, into spoiler territory, but it's very dark. It's very gloomy. The whole tone of it is just hopelessness, I would say, and that's just perfect for this movie, I suppose, right? The plot lines, the cases were disturbing, and it really sticks to your brain for a really long time. I love the dynamics between Brad Pitt's character and Morgan Freeman's character. It's a shame that the Brad Pitt's wife didn't get much to play, but yeah, I liked her character as well. For reasons which probably we'll discuss in the spoiler section, right? Yeah, and man, Brad Pitt is an awesome actor. So this movie, I freaking love this movie to death. Yeah, definitely recommend it. Maybe Caleb, you wanna go back to your thoughts?
Do I start all over again?
You can.
No, I'll just say a new thing. Right. I actually like this movie a lot too. I like the main thing I like in this movie is that the writing itself is, for me, in my opinion, it's pretty solid. I don't find any like weird dialogues or anything, and it's pretty important in a detective movie, because if like you write things out of place or differently, then the crime would be like get wonky, and
It doesn't have logic.
gets wacky. Yeah. So, and also pair up with like good actors, then it just makes the whole experience really, I wouldn't say fun, but enjoyable, I guess.
Yeah. One more thing I want to add is actually, if you want to subvert expectation,
This is how you do it.
this is how you do it, right? Yeah. Take note, certain Star Wars director.
Great shades.
Maybe Josh can tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, so okay, I'm just gonna get this out of the way right at the start. I love Seven, and if you haven't seen it, you should definitely watch it. Right, it's the first horror film that I ever saw, and I think like Joe, I probably, this is probably my fifth time watching it, and I can't overstate how much of an influence that it has had on my love of cinema as a whole. Like, I love the lighting, the shadows, the stylistic choices that Fincher uses to bring the world to life. I love how strong, like Caleb has mentioned, the writing, the dialogue is. I love how actually both Somerset and the killer are both disgusted by a broken, corrupted world, but how diametrically opposed their reactions are. And I love how Fincher allows us to use our imagination to bring the horrifying crimes to life rather than explicitly showing it on screen.
Right.
And I love how that, like Lynn is saying, that you watch this for the first time, and whenever anybody speaks about Seven, you always reference that ending, right? It's practically a meme right now. But I love how that, rather than diminishing the ending, knowing exactly how everything plays out actually makes that last half hour for me even more gut-wrenching, right? Even worse actually, because you're just so invested in the film. At that point, you're thinking, oh my goodness, like, this is how it's going to end, right? You know how it's going to end. Now, before I go into the stuff that I maybe some of my criticisms of the film, I do want to address the elephant in the room, right, which is Kevin Spacey. So he has been accused of doing some pretty deplorable and despicable acts. I don't want to go into the specifics of it, but I just want to say that I believe the victims that have come forward. And actually, when we were doing this, going to review this film, I was actually contemplating just speaking about the film purely from memory, because I've seen it so many times, right? Rather than rewatching it, for the same reason why I would never watch a Roman Polanski film or a Woody Allen film. And this is just my personal opinion, but I've always found it very difficult to separate art from the artist. Yeah. But because this film, when I talked about it, is so much more than just Kevin Spacey, right? I decided to just take the plunge and watch it again. Now, does that make me a hypocrite? I don't know, right? So okay, now we've got all of that out of the way. I do have some criticisms of the film on this latest watch. I wish Brad Pitt's character was a bit more fleshed out and a little less one-dimensional, especially when you put him next to Morgan Freeman's Somerset. And I look at this film as the first part of what I call Fincher's meditation on the nature of evil trilogy, right? Which continues with Zodiac and I think culminates with the Mindhunter series. And I think of these three, Se7en is probably the weakest. It builds its mythology from the philosophies of Milton and Augustine, but I don't think it really does too much with it, mainly because it holds the killer at arm's length for so much of the film. Like, you have Somerset and Mills interpreting what the killer is doing, but you don't really hear what the killer actually has to say until right near the end. And even then, like, the more I think about his manifesto, the less sense it makes to me. And I'm not sure if that's by design, right? But still, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a superb film. Is it your conventional horror film? No. Or is it one of the strongest of Fincher's works? Not really, but maybe because Fincher has as of right now got such a strong filmography, right? But if you're looking for a really ultra stylish, ultra moody dive into the evil that lurks in the hearts of men, I think you can't go wrong with Se7en.
Right. So definitely recommend it, right?
Yep, definitely recommend it.
All right. So there you have it, guys. I think unanimous. Everyone likes Se7en. So that is the non-spoiler part of this review. Stay tuned. We will be right back for the spoiler section.
Do you like what you do for a living? These things you see?
You have to wear blinders sometimes. Most times.
And no witnesses of any kind.
Nope. About the only thing we know about that guy right now is he's totally insane.
There are 7 deadly sins: gluttony,
You're going to come take a look at this.
greed,
No one touches anything.
sloth, wrath, pride, lust, and envy. 7. You can expect 5 more of these. This guy's methodical, exacting, and worst of all, patient.
He's 2 murders away from completing his masterpiece. Let's finish it. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No.
7.
Welcome back to our 11th episode of Incantation. We are going to do a deep dive into the film by David Fincher, Se7en. This is, of course, spoiler warning. If you haven't watched the film, what are you doing with your life? For the first part, maybe we will want to talk a little bit about the mood and the style of Se7en. What David Fincher does to draw you into that world. For me, is the setting of the city. It doesn't really specify which city. I mean, obviously, it's an American city, but it doesn't really say which city it is.
Gotham.
It's Gotham. No.
No, I think it's funny because I read an article where viewers were asked like which city do you think it's in, and a lot of them said New York City, which I don't know what that says for New York, but
It's very depressing.
Yeah, but you when they were talking about when the Morgan Freeman character was talking about how there was this guy who just got robbed and then he got stabbed in both eyes just because he got robbed. I mean, if you want to name a city that could actually happen, that's New York, right? I'm not throwing shit on New York, but man, you guys have a reputation. Right. So where was I? Yeah, I was thinking. I don't know if you guys realize, but like every single day it's been raining, and then it's just dark, and then it's just gloomy, which is just perfect for this whole case to take place in. And I love the colors that is on screen that I'm looking at, and man, the whole city is just, it just wears on you. It feels very disgusting. It feels very dirty in a sense, and after watching the movie, it makes you want to go take a shower. I don't know about you. I don't know about you guys, but man.
yeah, I don't know how many David Fincher films the rest of you have seen, but I think maybe among all of us, I think Joe, maybe you might have seen I mean, you would have seen quite a few, right? Zodiac, The Social Network,
Alien
3, what do you call that? Fight Club.
Fight Club.
Yeah.
What's the one with Rosamund Pike? No, that's
I
not.
can't remember. And there's Panic
Affleck.
Room as well.
Ben
Panic
Affleck?
Room, Gone Girl.
Gone Girl,
Yeah.
yes, that's the one.
Yeah. So I think that if you watch his films, he has a certain color palette that he likes to use, right? So it's a little bit. Would you say it's undersaturated? The contrast is very high, but the saturation is set a little bit low.
It's a lot of-
just
It's a lot of greens and blues.
to create this kind of atmosphere, right? The kind of mood.
Yeah.
And it's very consistent, I think, throughout his films. And I think it's amazing because even this is like his second feature film after Alien 3, and even from the very start, he really had this very strong stylistic approach to how he wants his films to look, what kind of color grading he's using for his film. I just wonder, Joe, because you touched on the rain, right? Do you think like the rain symbolizes anything?
I am not sure, but I think it's trying to paint a very bleak picture, and I mean, this connects to almost at the ending of it, but Gwyneth Paltrow's character, which is Stacy, I think she's like the only bright thing in the movie, and everything else is just bleak and dark and wet and gloomy, and and when the ending happened, it's just fitting that the killer just takes out the light in Brad Pitt's life, right? And that's what causes the ending. So
and they end in like a desert scene, right, where the rain actually is not present anymore. But before I go to what I think the rain represents, I mean, I don't know whether Lynn or Caleb, do you have any ideas or what you think about the rain? Because I think that's like a really interesting point, how pervasive the rain is throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about all the technical stuff, but the whole time it just feels very depressing, and it just fits the story and the whole Seven Deadly Sins killing, and also how Brad Pitt's character, he just moved to the city, and how he's like his life is like very dark around him,
right?
And all these things are happening, and then he like got tricked by this real estate agent to live next to a train,
right, a subway.
Can I say that is actually one of my favorite scenes in all of cinema, where they're sitting around the table.
Right. It's like the
They're just
only
laughing.
happy
Morgan
scene.
Freeman just says like, your comforting, vibrating home or something
yeah.
like that. And then the way that he tries to stifle his laughter, and the thing about it, right, is like in acting, it's really hard to laugh naturally, right? And Morgan Freeman does it so well that
Yeah.
I watched this film 5 times, and when he starts laughing, I start laughing as well.
And it's so sad. And it's so sad because that's the only,
It's like the only happy scene.
the brevity, that's the only scene that is light, that everyone is laughing, and it's because that Brad Pitt got tricked, and my God.
Yeah, I think I have forgotten up until rewatching it again, like how much tension there was actually between Somerset and Mills before that dinner scene. And so yeah, it made me appreciate that that little joke there a lot more. But I think going back to the rain, for me, it symbolizes how that city, that world is being drenched in this dread and moral darkness, right? That's why everything is so gloomy and so dark. And I think what I appreciated this time around was how you see that it's Mills that is most affected by the rain. Like he's always shown like he's drenched or he's sputtering or he's trying to get the rain out of his hair, right?
Yeah.
Like he's this new guy coming to this place, and the evil is now is drenching him and it's getting to him. But you see Somerset, he's in the same setting, but you never see him being bothered by the rain. You never see once where he's affected in the same way that Mills is. And I think that really shows how worn down he has become because of the pervasive everyday presence of evil. That initial, the cold opening to the film, right, where he's going to a murder scene, and then he asks the cop, like, did the kid see it or not? And you can tell like he's actually, I mean, that really sets the tone that he's a decent man, right? That he looks at the murder, but he's concerned about what happened to the kid, and then the cop just brushes him off and says like you're out of, like, telling him that you're out of your mind, but you come to a place like this, and the first thing you think about like it's your kid, and it's the kid, and we won't miss you when you're gone, and I think that was really, really good writing, because it set the tone for how beaten down or how accepting even the police force has become to this everyday evil. And I think there's something that the John Doe towards the end alludes to when he gives his monologue. Yeah.
Lynn, first time watching this, how do you feel about the city?
I think I agree with what you mentioned in the non-spoiler section just now. You mentioned hopelessness, and it felt like the citizens there were fine with that hopelessness, just like what Josh mentioned just now. People there seem to brush off little things like whether the kid watch the crime scene or things like that, and the whole setting is just like hopeless and gloomy, and in every corner you could see like a drug addict, or like people are just, I don't know, I wouldn't want to stay there. Like I would be like Tracy, I would hate the place as well. Yeah, but I think it really works for the movie. It sets the tone.
Yeah, I was wondering whether you guys felt that scene in the diner between Tracy and what's his name, Somerset. Whether that was a bit too on the nose, like was it too, like they were spelling it out explicitly, right? Because Stacey is now saying I don't want to bring up a kid here, and then Somerset was saying how like he actually convinced or wore down his partner to have an abortion because we cannot imagine bringing a kid up in this particular city. And like, did you feel like that was like, okay, like that you are making this point a bit too strongly, or do you think that it just fits into the themes of the film, that you needed one conversation like that to just bring that to the surface?
I mean, it's I would say it's more telling of how Somerset responds to things. I felt that was necessary. I mean, it gives it the character a bit more depth to what he actually does to, or how he could actually respond to the evil in the city, that he doesn't want to bring anyone else into the city, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I felt that scene was okay. I mean,
Yeah, and it also actually sets up the finale as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because there's the bit of information that will come into play in a very, very big way at the end.
yeah,
Yeah. I just got one observation, and I don't know whether I'm overthinking it, but you know, there's the scene where they visit this Wild Bill's leather store, and you know, if I was just thinking that wow, there's so many connections with Silence of the Lambs in this particular film, because
Buffalo Bill.
yeah, because Buffalo Bill, right? So
Yeah.
and then Wild Bill's leather, and then how Buffalo Bill was using human skin to make his human leather to make his outfits, and then at the start when Brad Pitt's character was saying my dog made me do it, Jodie Foster made me do it, and Jodie Foster of course is Clarice Starling in Silence of the Lambs, and then how the soundtrack is done by Howard Shaw, who's also did the soundtrack on Silence of the Lambs, and David Fincher then directs Jodie Foster in Panic Room, right? So it's like
That's a really loose connection.
no, but I mean, like, there's so many. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit loose, but I mean, there are a lot of. I mean, there are ties to Silence of the Lambs, I suppose, if you're looking for it, and I suppose the themes as well when looking into the nature of evil or diving into the nature of evil is something that is explored a lot in Silence of the Lambs as well. But enough. I think that's a bit of a sidetrack. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
Since you mentioned the Wild Bill scene, right, when the two detectives was asking, the guy was actually mentioning someone came in here and took the piece, his creation, and then he had a limp. And if you actually look outside the window, there was a guy with a limp looking back into the store.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's a bit of a trivia. I mean, I had to rewind it to watch it when I read it online.
And
he's
and
there.
they walk past him, right, when they're getting out of the store.
Yeah, they don't know who is this guy anyway. So he was actually at the window of the store looking in when they were talking. Yeah, so you can go back to the scene and you can watch it again.
Oh wow! But
Yeah.
but how would it work in the timeline though? Because like the thing that happens in the
It's already happened, right?
yeah, it's already happened. So like he was there and then he quickly made his way over. See that's the thing. Like if where I have a little bit of problem is with the writing is in how convenient or how like John Doe is like
It's like God, right?
Omnipresent.
Omnipresent everywhere. He's the reporter that took the picture.
Yeah, but I guess that's also speaking to the pervasive nature of evil as well, and how like he is also another reflection of that kind of evil. Yeah. But wow, yeah, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Maybe the next thing we should talk about is Se7en horror. I know this is a horror movie podcast and we chose this, but there's, I mean, because Se7en is actually classified as thriller more than like the ones that we used to, like supernatural horror or whatnot. What do you think, Caleb?
Yeah, I would think it's horror. It's more a lot of body horror, right? I like Joe and Josh. This is my second time viewing, and I actually don't remember a lot of the movie because I saw the first time. The first time I saw it was like a really long time ago. But there's like two specific scenes that stuck in my head. Was the gluttony scene and the what's it called, sloth, right? It was the way that how they did the body all bloated up, and then sloth is like all shriveled, ghoul like. I remember only the two scenes. Yeah, so I guess body horror is the right word for this horror
Body
genre.
horror. What about Lynn?
I would classify this movie. I mean, on my first watch, I'll classify this movie as thriller. I don't really see much of a, because to me horror always has a bit of that supernatural element, but this movie doesn't. But I guess the intent of the killer is very horrific. He's crazy. So I'm in between, but on first viewing, I would say it's more of a thriller movie to me.
Right.
But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely would think it's horror. I remember watching it the very first time, and the lust kill stuck with me so much that I had to like watch other things, comedy, to actually get it out of my brain. Yeah, it actually, I was, man, because David Fincher doesn't show it,
He just describes it.
and the reaction of the person that was forced to commit the act stuck with me so much. His acting was so convincing that I actually believe he did it. I mean, mind you, I was really young, but yeah, his reaction to it, how frantic he was acting, and how you can see it totally destroyed him after committing the act, and how he was forced to do it. So definitely psychological horror in that sense. And man, I don't want to talk about sloth. That scene is creepy as heck, and that sticks with you too. And
you know that the sloth scene, I think I read somewhere that the actor who plays the SWAT team guy didn't know that the actor on the bed was supposed to be alive. So when he coughs, his reaction is actually real, because he didn't expect the guy to do that.
He's the doctor from Scrubs.
he's the doctor from Scrubs. Yeah.
Is that really the doctor from Scrubs, Dr. Cox?
Yeah.
Oh man, I didn't realize.
I don't know. It looks like him.
He's the guy on the helicopter. He was at the helicopter.
I actually read somewhere the sloth is played by the writer.
As a
Andrew Kevin Walker.
Convincing ghoul.
That's
No,
the-
it's not sloth, it's gluttony. The writer plays gluttony.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Gosh, I hope that's a bodysuit. He's not that big, right?
Not really. Yeah, it's a bodysuit.
Josh, definitely this is a horror for you, right?
It's. I think if you even if it's only the last sequence, which you have already mentioned, that would be enough to put it into the realms of horror for me. I think the one thing that Fincher does really, really well is how he manipulates us into feeling in the horror sequences in our heads, rather than explicitly showing it on screen. You know?
Yeah.
Like he front loads, like Caleb mentions, he actually front loads the two more explicitly gruesome sequences, the gluttony and the sloth murders. And then, interspersed in between, there are some of the, your more classic horror signposts, like when Somerset is in the library doing his research, and then you have those imagery of Newton's the Paradise Lost, and the imagery of demons and people getting tortured and all that. And those are, you do see that in some of the more classical horror films. But I think, the thing that Fincher does most effectively is that from that point, I think from the midpoint onward, you don't really see too much of what the John Doe or the victims actually do, but it is described in such a way, or he leaves enough clues there, right, for you to feel it in your mind already. And I think that is actually really more horrific than sometimes they're putting it up on screen. And I really have to say that the last scene is, man, I mean, yeah, like you, Joe, this is my 5th time watching it, and even now, even talking about that scene, thinking about it, like it's just so horrifying. Like it is on a level of because what it does, I think one thing that you what Fincher does well in this scene, in this scene and in the film is that it shows you the effects of those horrific acts, right? The effect that it has upon the people who were who committed them, or the people who were suffering from them. Like a lot of times, horror culminates in the bad thing happening, and then that's it. You don't see what happens after, right? Like, for example, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You don't see what happens to the family of the victims when they find out that your kids actually got murdered by. I shouldn't be laughing, but actually got torn apart by a freaky family living in a farmhouse somewhere. You don't see the effects so much of what happens. And I think what Seven does so well is to put the effect of it, even like how it affects Somerset and Mills, and then with Last, and I think with Pride, and then of course when you come to the ending, right, how it affects the main players in the film. So now I thought that was a really interesting angle to take. Like, the act in itself is not the point. It is how we perceive it, or how it affects us, that is the point, right? And I think that is what John Doe himself says as well in his manifesto.
So which scene disturbed you the most, Lynn?
Personally, I find the last, not the last, not the LUSD one, but the LASD, the last.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I'm actually like feeling
You mean-
it like
You mean
when Brad
Wrath,
Pitt
right?
when Brad Pitt had to decide whether, okay, not really he had to decide lah, but knowing that his wife was beheaded, and knowing that she was pregnant, like if I was him, I wouldn't know what I would do as well, because I was feeling it in his shoes. So I felt that was just that was just crazy. Like it affects me a lot. Like, but if you're talking about physical torture, then yes, the last one is just insane. Like, I wouldn't want to imagine.
But David Fincher makes you imagine it. It's
Yeah, I
so
know.
crazy.
The actor was damn good though.
Yeah.
I actually read that the guy who plays the that actor, I mean, not the guy that plays the actor, I mean the actor, he actually like didn't sleep for a few days so that he could prep for that scene, so that he can be that in that agitated state.
That manic,
Right, so
crazy
that is
scene.
that is like really like method acting to the max, right? And it's just like for what, like a 2-minute scene.
Effect.
And but even there, I think you can see the stylistic choices of David Fincher. He's showing you how the owner of that place, how he reacts to that, and then you
Right.
see how the other person reacts to that, and he puts them side by side. At the end, ends in the speed of a split screen where you can see the two interview rooms next to each other.
Right.
And I thought that was just like, that was so good, because it then it reinforces to you that some people go in one direction where they are just like, I'm immune to this kind of horrors, really, and
Right.
on the other hand, like if you are touched by this kind of horrors, that it can just wreck your entire life, wreck your psyche, wreck your emotional and mental well-being. Yeah.
It's really interesting. What about you, Caleb? What's the most disturbing scene for you?
I would say sloth. Right, being tied down there for a whole year, and just get injected with all the random drugs, and then you just lie there, can't do anything. It's pretty hopeless and depressing to think about. But yeah, I guess that's the most disturbing one for me, because
You have to endure such a long-term torture.
yeah.
I mean, most of them died relatively fast, except for maybe Gluttony.
Gluttony is pretty torturing too, because it was force feeding him and then like make him burst.
How long did it last? Like a week or 2?
Days
Yeah,
still.
right. But I guess I can see it from your point of view. It's like, it's a long 1 year thing. Can you imagine being
Right.
tied down to freaking bed for her.
And you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you catch that John Doe mentions that he's a pederast? Which
Sorry, what's that?
pederast, right? Which means that you have had a sexual relationship with a boy.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure how being tied to the bed links. I can maybe if it's a sexual act, then you are on the bed, and maybe that's the tie there. But I felt it was quite interesting that at the end, when he goes off on his rant about what do you mean by innocence, and then he mentions all the sins one by one. Like he does specifically mention that the guy is not just a drug abuser, but he's also a pederast as well.
Child molester. Right.
Yeah, child molester or child sexual abuser. Yeah.
Josh?
I'm down.
We're all depressed now.
I'm so depressed right now.
I think like let's get to the ending. Let's get to that what we what we think about the ending. So maybe let's start with Lynn, because like Lynn, like you mentioned it, this is your first time you really like an ending. What is it about the ending that really worked for you?
I think it's tied into how I said that scene was the most effective one for me. It really plays with your mind, because like I'm picturing myself being in Detective Mill's shoes, and you thought you got the person, you thought you're finally arresting this person, and let's just get this last two scenes done with, and let's just go home, right? But no, it's your own wife, and finding out that she's carrying your child and she's just gone like that. It really affected me. And also the ending of like after Mills got arrested, what Somerset said was quite impactful as well. He said he will still be around, right? And it shows that, like, even though, because he was already going to retire, but he stayed back for this case, and he said he's going to be around. It shows that he is, he has just committed himself to whatever nonsense that's happening around in that city, and I think it really worked for me. Yeah.
Kill it?
I just like Brad Pitt's acting. It makes me feel like all the emotions that he's feeling. Like to have to make that very hard decision to either like kill the guy, or let him go and be trial for,
Right.
and then like your because the guy just killed your wife. I don't know. It's just a really tough decision to make, and like to put myself in his shoes. And I mean, his acting is pretty great.
Right. For me, it's what makes the ending great is really the events that leads up to the ending. I mean, knowing what happened already, and watching the film for the fourth or fifth time, you can see the build up to it, and the moment when Kevin Spacey, surrendered himself. The two detectives didn't even come close to catching him, and that's just to me very hopeless. It tells me, I mean, I don't know what Dave Fincher is tell me, but it's sort of like saying that how inevitable evil is, and how there is nothing you can do to stop it. And right up to the ending where Brad Pitt is just presented with a choice is just gut wrenching. Kudos to Brad Pitt for portraying that so well done. And I don't like the fact that it's become a meme because that's what's in the box. But man, that ending is just insane. I wouldn't know what kind of a mindset a person would be in if placed into that kind of situation, most probably you just suffer a psychotic break, and that's it, right? And that's what we sort of see implied at the end of the movie, where Brad is he's just a blank slate at the end of the movie. He's being carted away. So I felt that once John Doe has been found accidentally, accidentally found out by the two detectives, he sort of like that sort of like messed up his timeline, messed up his plans, and the Pride kill was a bit too rushed. I felt that was sort of like kind of weak. I don't know whether it is the weakness in the writing or whether it is just the weakness in John Doe's plan, but or was it intended that way? But the ending, as effective as it is, I feel it's kind of like thrown a wrench into the ending. So I don't know. I'm just rambling.
But I think you make a really interesting point, Joe, because there are three main things that I want to talk about in the ending. I think the first one is going to be the writing, right? Because when you watch it and if you're in the film and you are, if you're vibing with it, then the ending, it goes all the way up to the ending, and like Lynn said, first time watching it, I think it's super effective. But if you're watching it again, and I think what I noticed this time around is that why does John Doe set this kind of artificial clock on what's going on, right? Or when he needs to complete these things, right? Because the thing about time, I think was one it's a theme that is constant throughout the film, represented by the metronome, and how you see the days are marked, and how Somerset keeps talking about I'm going to be retiring in 7 days, but why does he need to rush pride and envy and wrath? Why does he even need to bring Mills into the situation, right? Because right, he could have just completed, changed his plans a little bit, completed all 7 murders, and then turned himself in and released his manifesto. It would still have been just as effective, I think. Like, he didn't have to. He does mention, there's the policeman who kills me. Then that probably makes it a little bit more sensationalized, I suppose. But Brad Pitt's character tells him, like, this world is really so evil. Like, what you're doing, 2 weeks time, nobody's gonna remember them anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so I felt that I agree with you that I think the writing towards the end, while it is a very strong ending, and again, it's because of, I think, a lot of it is to do with the 3 actors, right? Their performances are all amazing in that final scene, and how David Fincher shoots that scene as well. It's really, really good. It shows the dominance, I think, that John Doe then has over the entire proceedings, and then how, Pitt is then, it feels like he has no choice really but to commit an act of murder. But then when you actually think about it and try to break it down and look at from a plot perspective, maybe it doesn't work so well. So that's one thing. I think that's one of my gripes with the film. But on the other side of the spectrum, I think what I really like about it is how Somerset and John Doe appear to be 2 sides of the same coin. See, Mills is the one who's removed. Somerset tells him straight up towards the end, you are naive, you're optimistic, you still believe that you can make a difference, right? And Somerset and John Doe, they both have been so affected by the evil and corruption of the world that they're in, but they then choose very different ways to deal with it. Somerset is just apathetic, he's like, I'm going to withdraw, right? Whilst John Doe wants to impose some sense of, or some semblance of moral order through his crimes, through the atrocities that he's committing. And I found it really interesting, just that comparison between the 2 of them. And because they are contrasted in such a stark fashion, I would say that then that makes Somerset actually the main protagonist of 7, and that Mills is really a supporting role rather than being a true protagonist for the film, just because of how like he's a bit removed from that. But he is drawn in because of the act of what John Doe does at the end. And talking about drawing in, right, I think one aspect of the ending that I had not really considered before, and this is I think my final point, is how we also as the audience fall short of the standards that John Doe lays out, right? Because he says this, only in a world this shitty could you even try to say these were innocent people and keep a straight face. But that's the point. We see a deadly scene on every street corner, in every home, and we tolerate it. We tolerate it because it's common, it's trivial. We tolerate it morning, noon, and night. Well, not anymore. Right? And so then, if in the ending we empathize with Mills and him killing John Doe and Roth, and if we still think that Mills is the protagonist, then John Doe, in his death, is pointing the finger at us. We are all willingly complicit, right? We are saying, no, we tolerate it. This is fine, right? Because he's the good guy, right? And he has explicitly said there are no good guys. And if you side with people who are doing this thing, then what does it say about yourself? And I just found that a really, really interesting way to look at that ending, which I never really considered before. I don't know whether you guys think that that's a valid interpretation or whether that is what Fincher was trying to say. I haven't seen this being written anywhere else.
Actually, when I first watched it, I think I was in middle school or something. After watching it, I remember that I want to be a better person. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's sort of how it's the way that John Doe, his monologue at the end there, it's sort of like preaching to me, right? How I tolerate the things that are wrong, that I see that is wrong, that I know that is wrong around me, but I just, apathy, and you don't really care. And I remember after watching this that I said, I better be a better person.
Yeah, but then what does it say about Somerset or even like the rest of the police department when they say, no, we are going to take care of him, or we're going to help him?
Yeah.
But you are going to help someone who's, in John Doe's words, a sinner, right?
Yeah.
And so what does it say about them? I think that is really very interesting.
Yeah. But I mean, like you can, I don't know if it speaks to that, but like the whole police department is sort of like corrupted, right? If you catch it, because like how John Doe actually know about Mill's wife, he sort of bribed the cops.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So
yeah, but what about us? So I think I want to ask like Lynn and Caleb, like, do you still think at the end, like, Mills, Brad Pitt's character, is still a good guy after what he did? And if we still think he's a good guy, right, then what does it say about us?
It's a really tough question.
Yeah. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah. Do you still think he's a good guy?
I think he's a normal fallen man. I mean, like, anyone would react that way, right? Because we are just fallen that way. Yeah, given the option of killing off the person who killed your loved one, or be righteous and let him go and just claim to be insane in trial. Like, I think in any natural response, I guess personally for me, I would be inclined to do what Nils did as well. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, the deadly sins does apply to us as well. Just because it's common and it's normalized in our society, that doesn't mean it's right. And like Joe, I don't know whether unlike Joe, I never thought of being a better person. But that statement.
Okay.
But I think one thing, Lynn, I think I want to pick up one thing that you say. You mentioned about the option, right? So we have the Mills had the option of either executing John Doe or not, right? And again, I think we can go back to the writing, like the fact that there is an option that is presented. I again am starting to wonder about how those crimes were crafted, because in some of those situations there is an option. For example, greed. If you can carve out a pound of flesh, then you're free to go, right? Pride. If you can get over the fact that you don't have a nose anymore, you are basically Lord Voldemort, then you're fine, right? And then when it comes to wrath as well, like if he chooses to not avenge his wife, then he has a chance to escape. But then in the others, like there's gluttony, lust, and the
There's no
sloth
choice.
There's no
and
choice for
envy.
us.
Yeah, they have all been placed on rails. I think envy, the choice out of his hands as well. So, again, I'm starting to think like, is this a flaw in the writing, or is this, I don't know. But I guess it's something to think about.
I think the movie would be much better if every sin is given an option. I mean, the person who the victim should be given an option, then it works better.
I feel
Yeah,
a bit
if
like
your victim
Saw
is
then.
given the option is Saw. I was about to say that.
Yeah, it turns into Saw.
It's like a sleeper Saw prequel, right? Like towards the end, John Doe says, "I want to play a game."
Right. I think we can all agree that the righteous choice would have been for Detective Mills to not kill him and bring him to trial, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
But it's a hard choice.
it's really, you can sort of sympathize because you can see the struggle that he has, and multiple times he wants to pull the trigger and he stopped himself. And I'm not trying to justify murder of any kind, but you can the struggle, right? And of course I don't know the struggle whether to kill someone or not, but that is the struggle between good and evil, I guess.
And I think Somerset is the audience surrogate in that scene, right? Because the moment that John Doe reveals that that she had a child as well, and then you see how resigned Somerset looks at that point. Like he's just like, dude, I've given up. Like, you gotta do what you gotta do, I suppose.
Yeah.
He doesn't even try to convince him. I mean, he does. He just tells him that if you do it, he will win. But he's not actively trying to stop him from shooting.
Yeah, he's not actively. I mean, I was thinking he could have just stepped in front of Detective Mills.
But he does that at first, and then after that, I think that if you notice, like he actually just like steps to the side and be like,
Right. So make your choice.
Yeah, you
So
have
he
to make
sort
your
of
choice.
he sort of egged him on, didn't he?
Well, he didn't egg him on, but I think it's a there is a reading of it, I suppose, where you look at that and then you look at how the conversation that he has with his captain at the end, where Somerset is complicit as well in what what David has done. But yeah.
Could he even stop Mills though? If he stepped in front, Mills would have shot him.
No.
I feel like because he's like filled with so much rage.
But you can see he's struggling, right? How many times has he stopped himself from pulling the trigger? At least 4 to 5 times he's trying to stop.
I don't know. He does some pretty shady stuff too, right? Yeah, like what did Josh asked him if he's a good guy. I don't think he is, right? Because he like kicked down the door without a warrant. And then he would pay a random guy to tell a lie so he could search the house.
Right.
So I don't think he's like totally good.
He's morally ambiguous, and I think he's
Right.
he's impulsive. I think that's the main thing. That's his main flaw. Actually.
That's why he's wrath. Right.
Yeah, because he's so impulsive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like if Somerset would just stand there and try to stop him, he would get shot too.
And I think can I just mention one thing? It's going to be an aside. I'm so sorry for jumping back again, but
Right.
one thing that also struck me in this film, remember that there was a conversation between Somerset and Mills talking about when they draw their weapons, right? And I felt that it was so telling that when they went to John Doe's house, and then when they see John Doe, and then he shoots at them, and then he runs off. Like Somerset then actually takes out his gun, and Somerset takes out his gun again at the end when he's running back to Mills and John Doe, and I think when you hear what Somerset says, like I have never in my entire career. Like he's withdrawn his gun 3 times, never wanted to shoot it. But then in those 2 sequences, like he has actually taken out his gun with the intent, I think with the intent of using it, or to some extent. It actually signifies like how big of a threat he feels John Doe is, like how seriously that he's taking the situation, because like he knows that this is not your run of the mill or ordinary criminal.
Right. I'm properly depressed now.
I think we all are.
Right. Maybe we move on to the end ratings of the film. Caleb, maybe you can go first.
I'll give it a 9. I liked it a lot. It was solid acting, solid writing, directing. The end twist, was it considered a twist? No, right?
Not really, but
No, I mean, if Lynn didn't know that was coming, I mean, I suppose it could still be considered a twist.
Right. Yeah, that was, I guess, pretty shocking. And it didn't end like in a good note, which is okay, because not all, like a lot of horror stories end in happy ending.
right.
So yeah, overall it's like I liked it a lot. So 9.
Right. I would give it a 9.5.
Oh wow!
I mean, it's only one of the most influential movies in my life. The writing of it is solid. Maybe up until the end. Maybe, I'm not sure. Yeah, because you don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna get into it, but the writing is really solid. The setting of it, the visuals of it is, it's not pretty to look at, but it's really effective in portraying a city that's run down and corrupted and rotting, which is perfect with the message that John Doe is trying to convey. The kills it just sticks with you, and even when you're trying to sleep, it gets to you. So not so sure about the soundtrack. Soundtrack sometimes I feel it's a bit overbearing.
It's very 90s though. It's very 90s. Can I just say that there's nothing more 90s than having like a opening credit sequence and then like have somebody sing like either the theme of the film or something.
9-inch nails. Yeah. But in the context of a horror film, it's really effective as a horror film. It really screws with your brain. It will stick with you. I don't know. Randomly, it will come up in your thought, and I think that's a really good horror film. Yeah, 9.5. Lynn?
I would probably rate it an 8.5. Overall, I like the movie. It's a really good movie, and I would definitely watch this again sometime. I guess the part that I like about this movie is obviously I've mentioned a few times the ending. It really worked for me. The character of Brad Pitt as well. In fact, the performances of most of the actors, everyone did really, really well. Even the supporting actors, they just portray like really morbid stuff happening, especially the one who portrayed the last scene. That was just crazy. That was good. I guess the parts that I felt was a bit of a setback was like what Josh has mentioned, a bit on the flaw factor was that he could have committed all the 7 scenes, committed the murders of all the 7 scenes and still get the same outcome. But no, he chose to turn himself in at the 5th murder, and then like I don't know whether it will give a different effect, but it was a bit. Yeah, I guess that was a flaw. I'm so sorry for my dog as well. It's just right outside the door.
It's alright.
He wants to contribute too, but yeah.
I would say because his home was raided, he lost all his funding, so he has to like improvise.
Yeah, he probably did. So that's why it it felt a bit rushing as well. In the which one, the Pride one, that was like out of nowhere. But
just stuck
I don't
it
know.
in
He
there.
was probably trying to complete it in 7 days, right? Like that was the.
But he doesn't
manifesto.
explicitly say it though. He doesn't explicitly say 7 days. I think the 7 days is more towards Somerset's retirement more than anything.
Yeah. Because Sloth has been what, in a year?
He was doing it for a year.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I definitely recommend it to anyone who hasn't watched it. Yeah, but I don't know whether I'll watch it like 5 times like you guys. So let's see.
You can go back and watch the scene of the
Just
wild
for that one scene.
wild Bill Sharp, where if you can spot him at the window.
Okay.
Josh.
Yeah. So I love this film, but I think having watched it again, I think right now I'm starting to see I have some criticisms of the film. Like you, Joe, I mean, this is a hugely influential film for me. Like this is like if I have a pantheon of films, like that's definitely in there, right? Together with like Aliens and Terminator 2, those like foundational kind of Pulp Fiction. But then I think when it comes to, I don't know why I'm taking this so seriously. I should just
First horror
give it
movie.
a try. Say, I love the film. It's a
This
10
is
out
your
of
first
10.
love, man.
Yeah, but I think I think especially because it's my first love, that you want to be able to, and I don't know whether it's fair that I'm doing it because I'm comparing this to Fincher's other works as well, and I think when you do that, when you put Seven next to, especially the two that I mentioned, Mindhunter and Zodiac, I just think that those two are very much stronger, especially Mindhunter. But at the same time, like Seven is the most accessible among, or is one of the most accessible Fincher films, right? It's very dark, but like if I were going to be introducing someone to Fincher, I think where I would start is probably Social Network or Fight Club, and then Seven probably going to be the next one. So there's a lot to love. We've really covered so much ground. There's a lot to love, but I think there are some issues that I have. I think towards the end, the writing suffers a little bit. I couldn't help but thinking throughout the film that I wish Brad Pitt had shown me some other side of his character, because you can see that like Caleb has mentioned and I think you have mentioned too, the acting that he brings to that final scene, right? I think it's just a level above anything else that he does in the movie, and I don't know whether that's a deliberate choice. I don't know whether he's deliberately been playing somebody who is just more like a
Goofy.
good guy like that, right? Like a bit more one-dimensional, and then suddenly he's faced with a kind of choice that a life-altering choice at the end. But then when I think about, and again, it's contrasting Brad Pitt there with the Brad Pitt that we have now, right? The Brad Pitt that we have seen in Inglourious Basterds, Moneyball, Ad Astra, And I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah.
That's not fair, Josh. That's not fair.
I know it's not fair. I know it's not fair. But I think if you're looking at it from the perspective of a body of work, right, for David Fincher, I would give this an 8.5 out of 10. Like it is really good. Like in my heart, it's a 10 out of 10. Okay, I'll just put it but
Just go with your heart.
But if you're looking at it like from a if I'm going to critique this film, I would say it's probably about 8.5 out of 10. It's probably a fair score.
So sad.
Yeah. We're all depressed.
So maybe you can tell us about some of the recommendations if you enjoyed Seven.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I've mentioned it multiple times already, but Mindhunter. Fincher executive produced it. He directed some episodes of it, and I think why Mindhunter is better than Seven is because it is a deeper examination of the nature of evil, and really how much we can be affected if we come into close contact with it. It is really, really amazing television. If you haven't seen it, and Joe, you just told me off air that there's not going to be a season 3, which is so sad. It's so sad.
I'm so sorry.
Because they've really they set up the whole Charles Manson thing.
Yeah,
right?
man.
and we don't really get to see how that is resolved, and also the killer that has been going around. That plot thread, we don't see it. I think in real life that killer was only caught in 1990, so I was just really looking forward to seeing how are they going to age those characters, and but at least we got 2 really excellent seasons of television. And one more recommendation I would have is that if you want to look about at how good people, or maybe not good people, let's not say good people, let's say the police, how the police can become corrupted by encounters with evil. Another film that I would recommend is I Saw the Devil from Korea. How vengeance can actually can corrupt our soul to the extent that we are. And I guess it's not fair to compare what Mills does in this film and what happens in I Saw the Devil. But I thought it's a pretty good companion piece that if you want to have a look at it, it's more of an extended look at what how far we would go when we are pushed to a point where our moral compass just cannot function out, breaks. Yeah.
All right, so that wraps up our second psychological horror review, 7. Our third one is my pick, and I will be picking Pontypool. Pontypool is that's quite a reaction, man.
Because I've wanted to revisit it for a long time. I love Pontypool. Well, I loved Pontypool in the same way that I loved Seven.
Right, so I thought it would be an excellent psychological horror. Pontypool is a 2008 Canadian horror film directed by Bruce McDonald, written by Tony Burgess, and it's based on a novel called Pontypool Changes Everything. I don't want to get into the plot of it because that would just spoil everything. But it's about a DJ in a radio station broadcasting his night show, right? So that's as much as I can say about it. If anything more, it will be a spoiler.
Well, so, I think you can say that a crisis happens. And then
something happens.
Yep.
Something happens, and that's it.
That's it. Yeah. Oh my goodness, I'm so looking forward to watching this again.
Yeah. So I guess you can tell Josh liked that movie a lot. So I don't know if it's gonna be as
Another
much
10
as
out
you
of
liked
10.
it. Another 10 out of 10.
I mean, it ticks all the boxes, right? Like it's like indie, and it's actually really funny as well. If I remember it correctly, right? Which you don't see so often from horror films.
Yep. So if you guys wanna listen to us talk about Pontypool for another hour or so, join us next podcast. And please do subscribe to wherever you're listening to. Give us a comment, give us a like from whatever platform it is. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.